I'm Summer Falgiano, and you're tuned in to Badasses in Tech. This week, we're joined by Ayana Miller, data privacy expert and serial entrepreneur. She's about to share how tech helped define her why and give us her scoop on her latest role at Pinterest.
Yeah, so my official title is a technical program manager for data and data governance and privacy. It's a continuation of a role that I've had for a while now, working in privacy and big data and figuring out how to keep tech companies from doing creepy stuff with people's data.
Right. Yeah. So have you always been involved in data, or have you always been interested? What kind of what would you say kind of sparked your career in this field?
Yeah, so I was a poli-sci major, went to the College of William Mary, and I thought I was going to work for the government, honestly, or work in some capacity alongside government. So my first job out of grad school at Carnegie Mellon, where I majored in public policy and management, was working for a consulting firm, consulting to the federal government. And there I was working in a business strategy department, and the focus was mainly on privacy strategy. And at the time, Edward Snowden revelations were happening. And so I was really focused on just like figuring out where I could use my skills and my background, but also realizing tech was going to be huge and big data was going to be huge. And I looked at privacy and I looked at security, and there were a lot of requirements for becoming certified as a security expert. You had to have like 5 years experience versus privacy was this new field, and study for this exam, and you can take this test and become an expert. And so I took the test and became a certified information privacy professional, and that's really kind of what started my career down the path, and being able to leverage on the job training as opposed to having years of experience that some other fields require.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how is what you'll be doing at Pinterest different than, I know that you also had similar roles at companies like Snapchat and Facebook. How is what you'll be doing at Pinterest different than those roles?
It's not very different at all. It's still what happens a lot of times is these tech companies get consent decrees with the federal government. A lot of people now are familiar with what's called GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. But so Pinterest doesn't have one of those consent decrees. Facebook had it, Snapchat had it, Google has one. Lots of companies do. Pinterest doesn't, which is a good for them. And I can't talk on behalf of them, but I can just say that what I do is help set up privacy programs and make sure that a company is staying in compliance with everything that it says that it's going to do in its privacy policy, and making sure that it keeps those promises to its users.
Yeah. So that, I can only imagine, requires a lot of brain power and a lot of conversations and research and time. You also have jobs in investing and real estate. How are you juggling all of those? I mean, we all have 24 hours in the day. We're all human. So how do you do what you do? And what do you think are some tips that you can share on really how to balance all these different careers?
So my biggest advice is to figure out what your why. Why do you go to work? Why do you do what you do? Like, what's your purpose? For me, I really want to leave a legacy for my family. And I want my kids to one day say, wow, like my mom was doing like some badass stuff, like she was just rocking it. And I realized that tech is great for that. Like it got me in this mindset of being an entrepreneur, but I also knew I didn't want to stay there forever. And so for me, investing is the venue that I can fulfill my long-term dreams, and my full-time job is able to pay for that and make sure that I can invest. And so that's the way I balance like priorities. Like my job comes first, and eventually one day I will retire, and so I won't have to I won't have to work for somebody else if I don't want to. But for now, it's funding my dream, and so that's how I prioritize it. If I can't have my dream, then I need to be able to do that. I need to be able to work to have my dream. So that's what helps me. And then so as I've set this up, and it's been really successful for me, as you mentioned, I do real estate investing, and I also invest in a restaurant franchise. The biggest way that those are able to be successful is that I've set up people and systems and teams that I don't have to be there to manage them. I provide like high level strategy and of course the money. But I have people that I work with very closely and I trust that manage the day to day. So I don't have to be there present in order to for it to run.
Yeah. That again, that sounds like very strategic and thoughtful work. So did you always know about this passion of yours? How did you find your passion in investing?
Yeah, it started with like just a investigation of like the richest people. How are they rich?
Yeah.
The people that are self-made. What did they do? A lot of people now have started up e-commerce businesses
Hmm.
or selling something online. It's really easy to set up a Shopify store, go sell ads on Facebook or Instagram or somewhere. But the tried and true and like traditional method of making money is in real estate investing. And so once I figured that out, I was like, how do I do this?
Right.
And I started listening to podcasts, and one of them in particular is called Bigger Pockets. I never paid for any like guru class or system or any of that stuff. I just read a lot of books and figured out that you need a sizable amount of down payment. So I saved for years. My husband and I started talking about it many, many years ago. And it took us about 3 years from saying, like, yes, we're going to do this to actually buying our first multifamily property. And then again, using money from our full time jobs to do that, knowing that we had that in mind. But
Hmm.
once we had it saved up and got going, it became a lot easier to just keep on repeating that process. And it's just like working in tech. Once you've shown that you can do it in one place, people are more willing to trust you again in another company or another deal.
Right.
And so for us, investing has become easier. We have a system in place there, so we know exactly what we're looking for. And when we communicate with other investors, they trust us because they know we've done it before and we sound like we know what we're talking
Yeah,
about. And
absolutely.
so we've been able to be successful with deals there too.
Yeah. So it sounds like process is key.
Yes.
And it sounds like, coupling process with digging into what exactly it is that gets you excited. And to you it sounded like, really being able to leave a legacy and leave something nice for your family and your kids. And obviously that is going to be easier when you have money. So I can definitely see that puzzle. I can see the steps and all of that. So that's awesome. And something very valuable, I think, for our listeners to hear. Um, so do you mind? I mean, I'm sure, saving money and figuring out process and, finding who is the best person to work with. I'm sure there were some challenges in all of that. Is there one challenge in particular that you're comfortable sharing, and just kind of walking us through how you overcame that? And the reason I ask is because there are so many people out there facing challenges every day, and sometimes when you've hit a block, or maybe you got some bad feedback, it's very easy to kind of throw all of those dreams out the window over that one challenge or obstacle. So that's kind of the reason why I'd love to hear from you how you overcame that, so our listeners who are maybe experiencing the same thing can work it out.
Yeah, for sure. It's there have been so many rejections that I love sharing that. I love that
Yeah.
question because people, you can talk on here and share like, oh yeah, I have this and that, and it's good. No, like I have failed plenty of times, and my career wasn't a straight shot. Like I'm not on Forbes 30 under 30 or anything like that. Like it was work, and so I guess I can share the transition, like getting that first job and getting that second job. It was hard. So I mentioned going from grad school. I did a program where you do classes at night and you work full time during the day. And so I worked 32 hours a week at this company, and it was my first job. I was very grateful for that job because like my career and my grad school forced that job. So it was nice to have that security. Just
Yes.
like a student, you want that first time job, you want to get that offer. And then once you have it, you kind of settle in. You're like, do I like this? Like, do I
Yeah.
have anything to compare this to? And so it was hard for me. I hated consulting. I
Hmm.
hated having two bosses. It seemed like sometimes I would do really well with the client and I was spending so much time with them, but my relationship with my manager back home at the office was like suffering.
Right.
And I remember this really tough conversation I had with my manager where I was telling her like I wanted to do a certain type of work and the client wanted me to do that work, but it didn't align with the vision she had for my career. And like it was a really tough conversation. She was
Yeah.
like, this is my department," and I was like, "But this is my career." And I had never talked to a person that was superior to me in that type of way. But in that conversation, it was very eye opening because
Hmm.
she responded, and I think she had more respect for me after that conversation.
Yeah.
And I left the company soon after, maybe like 6 months to a year after. But those 6 months to a year, like there were tears and there
Yeah.
were more tough conversations, and promotions I was passed up for where I felt like I deserved them, and just so much hard work and still having to, go every day to this job and, maintain relationships with clients. And it was tough. I looked for lots of jobs, trying to get out, trying to get, like, prove, like, hey, look, I've been doing privacy for federal government clients.
Yeah.
Now let me do it, like, for operationally. Like, I really wanted to get in house somewhere and get out of consulting. And so many job interviews I would do well, and they would tell me like, no, the pay is less, like you deserve more. So like that
Right.
was tough. And then there were conversations where I just didn't hear from people ever again, like
Yeah.
interviews. And it can get really, you can get really in your head and start thinking that there's something wrong with you.
Hmm.
But when I finally did get a job, it was with the federal government. And I didn't stay there long, but it's because Facebook ended up reaching out to me. And so it's hard to see sometimes when you're like applying and hearing all these no's, or just like having the door shut on you. You feel like it's hard to stay encouraged, but I would say just like stay encouraged, and you have to really believe that whatever is meant for you, it's gonna come, because once that right door opens, so many other doors open. And now I'm so grateful for like that first time experience, because now I go in, I know how to have a tough conversation
Yeah.
with a manager, I know how to ask for what I want. It taught me great stuff about negotiation and asking the right
Hmm.
questions before I go to a job. And it taught me like what I don't want to do, and I don't want to ever do consulting again. So that's,
Right.
that's not a question for me. So yeah, it was tough, really tough, and I still fail at stuff now. But yeah, that was one of the toughest like times in my career for me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, we can all relate to that. And I love the fact that you basically unlocked those doors for yourself in that conversation, and it really came down to understanding your value, understanding what you're able to bring to the table. And if someone else doesn't see that, then it's not any sweat off your back. So I love that. What would you say was, through those times, what would you say was the one driver to kind of keep you motivated and engaged, whether it was a piece of advice or maybe somebody or something?
Yes, I had really good mentors around me in that space during that time. Even though my manager, and I think this is another good thing to like call out that I would say, and I say it to all the people I mentor all the time. Uh, Everything's going to change at your company within 3 months. Like everything's going to be different. There's going to be somebody that joins. There's going to be somebody that leaves. Dynamics are always changing. So if you're comfortable, like that's great, but don't get too comfortable because stuff is going to change. And if
Hmm.
you're unhappy, just work through it. It's going to be okay too, because again, everything is going to change in 3 months.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I think I got through it through having other strong mentors, especially women who were farther along in their career and could give me advice and tell me like just confirm like you're doing a good job. I know this is tough, but like hang on, like
Hmm.
you got this.
Hmm. Yeah. That's awesome. So outside of that, what are some other accomplishments that you would say that you're, most proud for?
Oh man. So when I was at Facebook, I really wanted to speak. I was interested in kind of getting out there, and my managers knew that. Again, I learned how to
Hmm.
just speak up for myself. And there were other people on my team. It wasn't a requirement to speak externally or anything like that. But I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I started at that time when I was at Facebook, and becoming more confident in my skills as a privacy expert. I knew that I wanted to start branding myself independent of any company that I worked for. And so I asked them for opportunities to speak publicly.
Hmm.
And one of them was at Facebook's developer conference. It's a conference they put on every year. Lots of people come from lots of different companies.
Hmm.
And I got the chance to speak at that conference and about privacy. And it's something I'm still very, very proud of to this day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Getting the nerve to get up on stage and speaking about a topic. So, in my opinion, like privacy and data I don't even know how to have a full conversation about those things. I'm like, I know that's important. I don't know much more about that. So I can only imagine. Yeah, it takes a lot of nerve to do that. Well, cool. So, is there anything else notable that you'd like to share for our guests who are trying to figure out their career, figure out how to find their passion? It sounds like you, like I said earlier, you've really become an advocate of yourself. In the form of talking with managers and when you're at Facebook kind of pitching this idea that you wanted to do for yourself. You also use Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn very heavily to kind of promote you and promote your own brand. So maybe talk a little bit about that, like how you use social media and technology to be that advocate for yourself.
Yeah, I think sometimes millennials get a bad rep for self-promotion and then also like the side hustle mentality. I've leaned into it. I tried to like be quiet about it for a while, and also this feeling, one, that you're like an imposter in your career and in the area you're expert in, and then second, that it's not okay to have multiple interests. And so like, yes, I know a lot about privacy, and that's what I do like day in and day out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to talk about that, but that's not the only part of me. And so I think it's okay to embrace that and embrace your brand as a whole person. And so yeah, I've been coming out of that shell, and it opens so many more opportunities for you. Like that's why I'm talking to you now. Is because I reached out and I started making a brand for myself outside of my job. And honestly, what I found is that doing that sets you up for success for your next opportunity, either in your company and also outside of it. And so I used to be very afraid to say like, hey, look, I like making jewelry, and I also do
Right.
jewelry on the side. But the reason I was able to start making jewelry and start like a jewelry business was because Facebook gives employees ads credits to test the ads program and ads platform. And so I learned from that job experience how to do that better, and from the conversations I had on that job, and that's staying with me. And so now I teach other jewelry makers how to do that. It's another little side business I
Wow.
have.
Yeah. There you go.
Huh?
I said, there you go. It's just, I feel like we're just adding to your list the more we're talking.
Yeah, and it's okay. Like it's okay to have varied interests and talk about those things. And so, for instance, with the job for Pinterest, they reached out to me. I haven't had to apply for a job since that time I told you I was struggling at the very beginning of my career. I haven't had to apply for a job formally. People have reached out to
Wow.
me, and it puts you in a very good position to negotiate. But then also, like at Pinterest, they were excited to hear about my real estate investing. They never asked for a resume. They used my LinkedIn as
Wow.
as a reference, and so that gave them the full understanding of who I was, not just, oh, this is me at a job, but no, this is me as a person.
Mm,
And that's why I was able to confirm that it was a good fit, because I wasn't going in there saying like, oh, I'm gonna hide my my love for jewelry or
right.
my interest in real estate. They were getting the full picture of who I was, and were still appreciating that, and it actually seemed to enhance their impression of me in the interview. So yeah, I think it can only help.
Yeah. So would you say that maybe for those who are applying to jobs, maybe the traditional way of going about the job search is changing and LinkedIn is kind of becoming more important than we think?
Yes, definitely use LinkedIn. I would say be careful about how you talk about your side hustle, because depending on the company and the
Right.
culture there, it may be a deterrent. But I think that's something that you have to figure out for yourself where
Hmm.
you're going to be. Because if you're going into more of a corporate environment, they may not understand that you have something on the side. And so when you're ready to talk about that, and I think when you're ready to like put it on the line and say, look, this is me, I'm bringing my whole self, and you want a company that will align to that,
Hmm.
then yeah, it makes complete sense to talk about it and not be afraid. But every company isn't going to appreciate that,
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So
Absolutely.
yeah, be careful, but yeah, you have to know. Don't be afraid to be who you are. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the theme. That is definitely the theme of today. Well, cool. I just have one more question and then I'll let you go. I'd love to hear what's on the horizon. I mean, we just kicked off a new year. Do you have any resolutions or goals that you're working towards, whether they're career or personal?
Yeah, I try not to set resolutions.
Yeah.
I try to have a plan and execute against it. And so, yeah, I don't have any specific like resolutions,
Right.
but I'm going to continue to build my property, my portfolio around that. With the new job, I'm also kind
Hmm.
of just heads down focusing on that right now,
Yeah.
learning everything, ramping up. And then on the like personal branding side, I want to do a lot more communications like this,
Hmm.
talking to and mentoring other people who might be starting out in their career or finding out what they're passionate about. And then just I'm really focused this year on also talking about money and negotiations.
Yeah.
I think it's something especially women don't do a lot of. And there's so many platforms now, like Blind, where you can find out compensation information. Glassdoor is another one.
Oh, wow.
But I think women in particular have to uh, have to learn and be comfortable talking about and advocating for yourself within the negotiation process. And it's not just like on the job interview; it's all the time. Like you
Hmm.
have to learn how to negotiate and get what you want. So I'm figuring out how to talk about that more and be comfortable, even sharing my own experiences, both like on with jobs and
Yeah.
money, but in other aspects too.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear how that goes. And please help me out with all of that stuff too. Maybe we'll circle back in a couple of months and we can have some sort of workshop. Because, yeah, to your point, I mean, sometimes even if I'm like in a situation and I know I'm supposed to be there and I know I have a leg up, I am hesitant to maybe say what it is I actually want to say. And I'm more comfortable saying something that I know that that other person wants to hear.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's very important, and it's great that you're doing that work. I'm happy. We need more Ayanas for sure in the world.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To hear more, check out our website, badassesintech.com, and join our community. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud, so follow us and tune in next week. That about sums it up. I'm Summer Falgiano, and this is Badasses in Tech.